Alrighty. I guess we got a debate tonight that we're just gonna watch. We're not gonna get controversial with it. Just FYI. Just want to observe. Just observe the chaos that is American politics a little bit. Let's see. What am I doing here? What's up, Ethan? I see we got a few people. I see Paul. I see Hackswale. Havoc Squad. What up, my dudes? The debate doesn't start until about 6 o'clock. So we'll just kind of wait for it. Akash, what's up, man? I haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to be playing a game while we watch, just FYI. I've been playing this game called Prison Architect. What's up, Amrita? So I'm going to overlay the debate like onto it. So I'm going to watch it on, I think, PBS YouTube stream. I know right now that like that PBS is sort of it seems to be the most neutral. If I had to pick one, obviously the debate moderator tonight is Chris Wallace, who's Fox News. So that's a little more on the Republican/conservative side. Typically, that's what you would say Fox News is. But PBS tends to be... Oh, wait, is it not going to let me overlay my picture-in-picture while I'm playing a game here? I might have to change the... What's up, Amrita? I might have to change the graphics. Oh, wait, there it is. Oh, I see what happens. This game doesn't have the best UI. So we're going to have to go... We're going to have to go... 16... No, we're going to go 1680 by 900 to fit it. So that's what we'll do. We'll do this. And I'll make this a little bigger. We'll do this. Something like this. What's up, Havoc Squad? My day's going good. My day is going pretty well. Let me know if the volume is off in terms of the video when I start the audio on here and my voice. Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing, man? Oh, it's Srikanth. For some reason, I thought you were... Who did I think you were? I thought you were Justin. I thought you were, but that could have been... I don't know why I thought that. Who's more powerful? They're very different. They have very different power. I'm gonna make this a little smaller for right now. I'm not a fan of how this game won't let me have it full screen and have an overlay. It's really annoying. I would say that they're very different candidates, right? And they have their own strong suits for their own. They have their own strong suits and their own weaknesses. I don't really have a, I'm going to be pretty neutral. I'm going to be pretty in the middle here. I'm not going to get too political. I just want to observe and watch. But I don't know. They're both, they both have their strengths. Trump's clearly a very talkative person who's got a lot of quick sort of hit speak like he loves to, poke fun and play a little bit of the troll sometimes, I think. But a lot of people are on board with him. And then Biden is a little more measured, a little more of like a seasoned politician. I'm not a big political guy though, so my takes are I don't have like 200 IQ political takes, unfortunately. It's not my field of expertise. I'm more of a science guy, a little bit of philosophy lately. But politics is just not my field of expertise, so I don't like to comment too far beyond my own expertise because I think you just start talking about stuff that you don't really understand. Oh, in a fight? Who would win in a fight? Oh man, that's a really good question. Who would win in a fight? Trump or Biden? Okay, I don't know who would win, but that would be a fight. That would be the most pathetic fight of all time. How much money do I have? I have 38,000. So I've been playing this game for 20 hours, and I built this sort of prison for 200 inmates. It's going pretty good. My cash flow is pretty high. I'm considering selling this prison and starting a new one because I'm kind of hitting an end here. So the debates are supposed to start pretty soon. What are they saying?
Is for certain ahead of tonight. These are unprecedented times. The nation is going through a pandemic as well as a national reckoning on race, an economy that is struggling to recover from this public health crisis. So all eyes are on these candidates tonight as they make their case to the nation. So as we prepare for this debate, we are about to begin. A few things to watch here. Number one, what will Joe Biden's energy level be? We did see him
energy level
and stumble in some of the primary debates.
I always talk about Biden's energy level.
Strongest arena during the primary process. However, he did recover, go on to secure the nomination. Tonight, he will make an appeal to the country that
unknown person. What's up, man?
To lead America.
It's a little loud for me right now.
Moment. That is his challenge for President Trump. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he goes on the offensive against Joe Biden, how aggressive he will be. As I just
I'll say one thing ahead of the debate here.
Debates, we do expect the gloves to come.
A little disappointed that the topic of climate change is not a topic that Chris Wallace chose to have.
Stronger pitch to Americans on
a little disappointing.
COVID-19 and the economy.
I think most of what you're going to hear tonight is about exactly the COVID-19 stuff.
Donald Trump and Joe Biden have both put very different plans for how to tackle this public health crisis. Donald Trump has a vaccine, perhaps even before the November election. Joe Biden has cautioned it will take a while for access to vaccine. He has
a little stuttery right now with the PBS stream, huh?
This pandemic, as deaths in the United States have crossed 200,000.
Unknown person. You're a huge fan of me?
A flashpoint between the candidates.
That's cool, man.
A big topic here tonight at this debate, and of course the economy.
Yeah, I might sell this prison
to the American people that they can bring us through this economic moment. We've seen jobless level off, but they are still coming in at the rate of approximately 800,000 per week. A lot of Americans have been hit by this public health crisis and are struggling to. Those are some of the very big items at this first debate. It will be one for off the stretch run of the general election. This is the sprint. This debate kicks off. Joe Biden is leading President Donald Trump in national polls as in some polls in battlegrounds. However,
what's up, Abhinav?
Have been
PBS. I loved PBS when I was a kid. Actually, that's not true. PBS was like, I remember when I was a kid, PBS felt like the Vegetables of TV channels. It was like you had Nickelodeon, you had Cartoon Network, which were like your tasty channels for a kid, the best cartoons, and then you had PBS, which was just like kind of like, it was like educational, but it was kind of like it was definitely not up to the entertainment value of things like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Yeah, I might sell my prison. I think this prison's done. I've used up. I think I've satisfied all my grants. Oh, wait. Oh, cell block E. They want me to build another cell block. Ooh, raise your prison capacity to 500. Okay, I guess I gotta do that. Take this grant to 500. So I got 50 grand now to raise it to 300 prisoners. Oh my God, dude. Should I watch it on? Why should I watch it on ABC, Abhinav? That's true, but PBS holds a special place in my heart. It's public broadcast system. It's like a. It feels like a wholesome network. They're a little bit liberal. They lean left, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of I lean left, if you would say anything about myself. So, but I don't know. They're publicly funded, right? So you would hope they'd be less biased than a company like, Fox News or CNN or ABC, these places that can potentially be influenced. You guys hear the video okay? All right, so I got to get 500 more prisoners. Oh, I messed up at this. I had a task to do to keep, I had 6 witnesses in my custody here that I had to protect. And 4 of them already died. But I couldn't find them. They were in here somewhere. I had tagged a couple and tried to put them up in this dormitory to keep them safe, but they didn't. A little quiet. Turn up a bit. How's that?
That's White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor.
A little better.
Our congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins, who's covering the Biden campaign. Senior national correspondent Amna
Oh, it's too loud. You can't hear me.
The debate with a half a dozen voters from around the country. Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report.
I'm getting mixed messages in the chat.
Columnist Gary Abernathy joining us from Ohio, and syndicated columnist Cynthia Tucker in Alabama. Welcome to all of you, and we're going to ask you now for a quick word from each one of you, starting with Yamiche. Tell us, how is the president?
Do you think Trump and Biden will come out with masks on? Probably not, huh? They probably won't have their masks on because they would have. Or it would be hilarious if one of them came out with their masks on and the other didn't. Big. Ethan, no, I didn't get a new hairstyle. I mean, I cut my hair like a month ago or so, but that's about it. Nothing really crazy new. All right, I'm going to build another cell block over here. Actually, yeah, let's do...
So meanwhile, Lisa Desjardins, how is Joe Biden preparing? The Biden camp has had a more traditional preparation in some ways.
I want 21.
Joe Biden has prepared for this moment since 1987, the first time he ran for president. Tonight they say he will defend his record, but also go after President Trump.
21 by 46. Like that.
When does he step back and let viewers decide the president's words for themselves?
Put in a...
Amy Walter. Amy, what is the one thing you're looking for tonight?
Need some doors.
Well, it's unlikely that we're going to...
Where can I put this thing so that it's not in my way? I'm going to put it here for now. Doors. Large door.
Is Donald Trump able to get off his back foot onto his front foot, make it about something other than his own challenges, make it about the shortcomings of Joe Biden?
Amna Nawaz, you are going to be watching with a group of voters from around the country. Have they made their minds up yet?
Judy, most of them have. We assembled a group of 6 people from around the country, from Tennessee, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, South Carolina, and California. 3 for Biden, 3 for Trump. Only 1 said he was open to changing his mind.
We will be coming back to you after the debate. Right now, as you see, debate moderator Chris Wallace about to introduce the candidates. Let's go to Cleveland.
All right, here we go.
This debate gets
We're getting started.
From the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed that candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now.
Ooh, tunnel.
as we welcome
Someone's
the
digging a tunnel over
Republican
here.
nominee, President Trump.
I gotta do
and the
a
Democratic
tunnel search.
nominee, Vice President Biden.
Tunnel search. All right, here they come. There's Trump. There's Biden. Looks like they're behind a green screen.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have
okay.
been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over
How's
the
that?
weekend
A little bit better?
to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question
Yeah, it's
to
funny.
both of
This
you
is an
tonight,
interesting question.
Why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the
over
White
here.
House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. And looking
Thank
forward
you.
to this, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people
Biden is known to stutter.
from having insurance,
Careful.
health insurance now, if it goes into court. And And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing is on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held to pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well.
Ooh,
Those
my camera
pre-existing
stopped.
conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the
I'm trying to-
election,
I'll
and
fix
the
my camera
Senate
here.
is
Something
Democrat
happened.
or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
White.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
Not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist.
They're already at each
My
other's
party
throats
is
here.
me.
Socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had
Pre-existing conditions.
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if
this.
you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected.
See, this
You
is
want me to
one of the
ban-
problems I was
All right,
worried about. Like
gentlemen,
Trump,
wait,
Trump can like
Mr.
out.
President, you would have been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr.
Much
President,
later.
Mr.
You're
President.
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as a
shut him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let
Trump
me
is very
finish.
aggressive with
The
his, like,
point
debate
is that
tactics.
The president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
See, look, he constantly
Why
interrupting.
is it
You
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general,
What's up, Pramod?
are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual
when I finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got
when
rid of the
Excuse me,
individual mandate,
to the
which was a
moderator.
big
It's not a
chunk of Obama.
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask you,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part
me.
of Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most
Trump taking over the debate.
of Obamacare.
Complete disregard for the moderator.
Mr.
Holy
President,
cow.
I'm the moderator of this
Jesus.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan.
Biden just watches
to
for the
replace
remainder of the debate as Trump and the moderator
Obamacare.
have their own
And
little debate.
Just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care
All
plan?
right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As
fraction.
I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big,
you'll
this
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if I
sorry.
can ask you the question. It will
Not what
end
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's
I
far
did.
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that gives
manifest-
you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going
didn't
to listen to
agree?
him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here.
by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is
Tuesday.
Pocahontas?
You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
wait,
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class.
Dude, the moderator just needs to not let Trump interrupt every
wanna
2
make sure-
seconds.
President,
Holy
Can you let him
cow.
finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the
go,
wrong
Joe,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the manifesto.
idea-
Let him.
Shoot,
There
escapes.
is no manifesto. Number
Please let
one.
him
Dude, I thought I cleared the
Number two.
tunnels
Just
already.
lost the left.
Number two,
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
folks,
that's absolutely agreed
folks, do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Medicare.
Do you have any do?
Socialized medicine.
This is
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he
Very
is
unproductive
not
right now.
for any help for people needing health care because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah, yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't
What's
ever
up, Arnav?
deny and say that's
How you
what
doing,
he
man?
wants to do.
Appreciate
Take it
that.
away.
No, I want to give
Number
you better
three.
health care
Although
at
I-
a much lower price
But,
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as
single
you
Although I still
might
feel
know,
weird when
but
you say
probably
fan.
don't,
Gentlemen, you
Obamacare
realize
is
if you're
no
both
good,
speaking at the
It's
same
no good.
time.
And
But
it's
thanks
still
for coming in,
good.
man, and
Mr.
watching.
President, go ahead, sir.
I figured it's a good
Obamacare
idea
is no
to sort of
good.
watch
We made it
debates
better.
on
And I had a
stream.
choice to
This
make
is
very
a lot of
evident.
students
We
don't
took away the individual
pay attention to
mandate.
politics,
We
but it's really
guaranteed
important.
pre-existing
I know you guys
conditions,
can't
but took away
vote
the individual mandate.
yet, but still,
Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. That, they
it's
shouldn't
still
even
important to
call it
kind of at least have the
Obamacare. Then I
idea
had a
of
choice to make. Do I
at
let
least
my
getting
people
into the
run it really well,
thinking about things, looking
or
at
badly?
things.
If I run it badly, they'll
Now, the problem with
probably blame me,
debates
but
like
they'll
this
blame me,
is
but
that you
they'll
don't get a
blame
lot of
other
information,
people,
unfortunately.
okay?
You get a little
Listen,
bit, but
you're
what you
gonna run it
mostly
so
get
well.
is little
And I
snippets.
just had a meeting with them. They said the
And a lot of
problem is
arguing,
no matter
apparently,
how
in this
well
case.
You run Obamacare. it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people
we
say.
do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
get
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give
better.
you roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have one final question for you.
Sure.
I played
Mr.
Factorio
Vice President.
briefly.
If Senate Republicans,
I played it
we're talking
briefly,
originally about the Supreme Court here.
but
If Senate
I
Republicans
want to go
go
back to it
ahead
because it's the kind of
and
game that
confirm
I
Justice Barrett,
enjoy,
there has
where
been
it's like a
talk
lot of
about ending the
micromanagement
filibuster
kind
or
of,
even
like
packing the
efficiency-based
court,
game,
adding
like trying to
the 9
maximize
justices
efficiency.
there.
And
you call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president.
I think that's the game I'm going to
Brought
go
up by
back to
some of your
next, after I
Democratic
kind of
colleagues
finish
in
playing
the
this game and I kind of get over it.
So my question to you is, you have refused in the past.
I'm gonna go
talk
back
about it.
to
Are you
Factorio, I
willing to
think.
tell the American people
But this
tonight
game has been really
whether or
fun.
not
I've
you
been
will
playing it for about
support
20
either
hours
ending
so
the
far, and I
filibuster
actually really like
or
it.
packing the court?
It's
Whatever
the
position I
it's
take
the kind of
on
game that's like
that
up my alley as far as
issue
just like
is
the
the American people should
micromanagement,
speak.
trying to
You
maximize
should go out and
efficiency,
vote.
a lot of like
You're
things to
voting
do.
now. Vote and let your senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
you're
answer the
senators.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen,
So
I
Trump's
think
tactic clearly here is to rattle Biden by just constantly interrupting and pestering him
we're gonna move on to
and
the
not
second
relenting and
segment.
hoping to get him confused. It seems like that. And Biden is
Yeah,
having a hard time with
People
it.
understand, Joe.
And the moderator's not doing.
47 years you've
See,
done
this is the
nothing.
problem with
So-
debates. It's not a conversation. You don't really get much information out of it. All you do is hear a couple people argue at each other for a while.
Let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than
okay, talking about
200,000
coronavirus here.
people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it.
Dude, I don't know
He
what's
said
going
he
on with
didn't
my
tell
camera,
us to give
guys.
people a warning of it because he didn't want to
It
panic
might be
anymore.
overheating, to be honest.
You don't panic.
Because I was using it all
In
day.
addition to that, what did he do?
For
He
classes.
went in and we
And
were
normally I give it a
insisting
break
that
at
China,
night.
The people we
I hope
had
it's
on the
not
ground in China
I
should
hope
be
it's
able to
not
go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did
cutting
not
out
even
on me.
ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
just 2
March.
minutes.
I will say that I do
exactly
think
what
Trump
we
really
should be
mishandled
doing.
the.
And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all.
That's
the
actually not a bad
protective
idea,
gear possible. We
Srikanth.
should be
I
providing
could
the
put some
money
ice
the
on
House
it.
has passed in order
Give me
to
1
be
second.
able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened
Wait,
to you.
you have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's
see if
fault.
some ice
And by
works.
the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you.
Okay, Trump's being a little bit facetious
President
here.
Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators.
Sure, he closed it from China, but it was already too late at that point. And then there was like a month after that where they didn't do anything, and that was the real issue.
Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you
So
say,
it's still not
they
my
give you
fault.
Bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press, they give me bad press, because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we
Ice
did.
pack.
You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the
Gotta
job.
protect it from
I
moisture.
know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do
done.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was-
Far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease.
you made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one, we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your
How many?
mom or dad?
That would be
and
like,
you couldn't
what,
even
200,000
speak to
now,
that
right?
nurse
200,000
holding the
people?
phone up So you could, in fact, say goodbye.
It's a lot of people.
Far
How
more
many
No
people.
joke.
Far
That is-
more people. You would have been.
And by the way,
months late.
your own
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine. We're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this.
Didn't he say he will have it
rather
by
make
Christmas?
political
I
than
remember him
save
saying
lives.
that.
It is a
By
very
Christmas.
political thing.
That's crazy.
I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available. not when
Well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
this is
delivering
the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the
That's
warm
true.
weather, it'd be gone.
He did say
Miraculous,
that.
like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some.
But a lot of
bleach
people
in
said
your arm,
that.
That would take care of it.
A lot of people
This
did.
is the
That was
same man.
said sarcastically,
That was
and you
him.
know that.
I remember
said
in March
sarcastic.
of
So
this
here's the
year,
deal. This man
when
was talking
when people were
about
talking about it and it was
every
getting serious, I remember
every
thinking,
serious company
"There's no
talking
way
about
school's going to
maybe
close."
having
I
a vaccine
remember
done
underestimating
by
it.
the
I think
end of the
everyone
year. The
no one would have
distribution of
thought
vaccine
that it would have led to
will not
this.
occur
It's
until
crazy.
sometime beginning to the middle of next year to get it out. If
You
we
guys
get the
are
vaccine, and pray God we will.
living
Pray God
through
we will.
something that is
President, I wanna pick
extremely
up on-
unique.
I want to pick up on this question.
And,
though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact,
Man,
you said that
I
again
can't imagine
tonight.
going through it with
Your
you guys go
running mate,
through.
Senator Harris goes further,
Going
saying
through
the
high
public
school
health experts, quote,
with the
will be
coronavirus,
muzzled,
dude.
will
You
be
guys have got a
suppressed,
unique
given the fact that polls already
high school
show
experience,
that
and I
people
feel
are
bad for you.
concerned
I
about
really
the
do.
vaccine and are reluctant to take it. Are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the
No,
scientists.
well, no. You can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You
The
can't trust
debate
the
ends.
Public health experts, quote, will
I
be
think it's. He
muzzled.
said it was what,
Yeah,
15
well,
6-minute
That's what he's
segments?
gonna
Is that
try
what he
to do,
said?
but
15.
There's millions of scientists. There's thousands
No,
of scientists
6
out there,
15-minute
like here at
segments.
this great
Oh, that wouldn't
hospital
matter which way
that
around. I think it was
don't
6
work for
15-minute
him.
segments,
Their
right?
job doesn't depend on him.
So that's 45 times 2.
There
It's
are
an hour and a
people-
half, so it should end by
By the way,
7:30.
The scientists that are in charge,
the way,
they will have
7:30.
the vaccine very soon.
Does-
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of
Notice
all
Biden's
the
strategy.
lies
He does a lot of
about
sincere pleading into the camera. He
issue
looking
that
into the
you
camera.
prove?
That's his like
He
his
still
like
hasn't even acknowledged.
very
that
heart
he
to heart.
knew this
Whereas
was
Trump is a little more
happening,
like
how dangerous it was
Trump
gonna
has the
be
alpha
back in
energy, whereas
February,
Biden has
and
the
he
little more
didn't
empathetic
even tell you. He's on record as saying
energy.
he
Two very
panicked
different
when he
strategies,
just
and they're
let the
pandering. By the way, they're
stock
pandering
market
to
go
their
too, because guess
demographics,
what?
right?
A lot of
Conservatives
people
tend to
die.
be much more
A lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter.
a little bit more.
Did you use the word smart?
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
So you said
I
you
should. That's
went
a
to
generalization.
Delaware
I was going to say,
State, but you forgot the name of your college.
liberal people,
You didn't go to Delaware
Democratic people
State.
tend to
You
tend to have a lot more stock
Even
in
the
their
lowest
like
or almost the lowest in your
care,
class. Don't ever use the
caring
word
for other
smart with
people.
me. Don't ever use that
They really
word.
put a lot of
Give me a
value in
You
that
know
as like a
what?
moral
There's nothing
foundation.
smart about you, Joe. 47
Republican,
years you've
conservative
been
people
Let's
tend
have this debate.
they value it, but they
Yeah,
tend to
let me
value it a
just
little
say
less
something, Joe.
No,
If
you
you would have
from what
had
I've seen in surveys.
the charge of what I was put through. I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
The
So
stock
when
market's
it
going up
comes to how
fast,
the
but that's
virus
not
has been
necessarily true. What
handled
the
so
economy
far,
and the stock market
the
are
two
two
of you
different
have
things.
taken
So
very different approaches, and
I would
this
like to
is
hear
going
why
to
he thinks the
affect
economy is
how
going
the
up and not
virus
just the
is
stock
handled
market.
going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Let's hear
Because
this.
I have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy
No,
Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. They
God,
won't
Trump,
even
he
meet with them. The Republicans
doesn't
won't meet
stop.
with
His
them.
mouth doesn't
And
stop.
And he sits on his golf course. And, well, I mean,
Nah.
literally, think about it.
You probably
Or
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about the question of reopening?
Trump is so flippant,
He wants
dude.
to shut down
It's
this
like Trump would be a better comedian than he
I
would a
wanna keep it
politician.
open.
Like he
And
picked the
you-
wrong
Shutting
career.
it
He shut it down.
Wait a minute, Joe.
Let him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. We want to.
God.
He wants to shut
Crazy.
down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot.
2
Young
deaths.
children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states
where's the
that have been
deaths?
shut
Who-
down, they
where's
have
the
Democratic
deaths today?
governors
2
all.
deaths?
One of the reasons they shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election
All right,
on
I
November
want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
thing.
subject.
here.
Which
Those-
I
but
wanna
those
move
states-
There's a little fight in the
Those states
cafeteria.
are
Another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of
Send a couple
masks as a
guards there.
disease preventer.
Matt
And
Davies.
in fact, recently you have cited the
Wow,
the
he was in
issue
for
of
27 he had
waiters
served
touching
23
their
of his
masks and
27
touching
years.
plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
but
He was just
efficacy
murdered.
of
You have to
masks?
understand. If you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on it, when I think I need it. tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
But
I don't
he
wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
How is that a bad thing?
Vice President Biden.
Wow.
Look, the way to open businesses
Oh, my God.
is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But I
Congress.
was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to
the
ask you,
opposite.
we
He
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump.
So the
you're
problem with
holding
the whole
large
like
rallies
masks is
with
good
crowds
versus
packed
masks
together,
is bad.
thousands of
Like
people.
Outside.
the problem is that
Outside,
the scientific community was grappling with
President
the
Biden,
virus.
you are
They were
holding
trying to
much
figure out what the
smaller,
best strategies were
events
to deal
which
with it,
nobody
right?
will
So
show up.
of
People
course, as they
with
updated their recommendations, it was going to
Nobody shows
change,
up.
and a lot of people like criticized the fact that they would say like, oh, the scientific community flip flopped back and forth on
Because people
recommendations,
wanna
and it was
hear
like,
what I
okay,
have to
well.
say. I mean,
But are you not
We are-
worried about it
Great job
spreading
as a
disease?
If
president.
updating your
25,000
information and recommendations is
people
considered
show up
flip-flopping,
at
well, that's
airports
okay,
and
but
use airports.
Are you
I
not
don't think
worried
that you can
about
really
the
We have a lot
say
of
that.
people- Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. All right, put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way
did.
far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no
or
negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've
Come
had
on.
no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people
you wanna-
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up, because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much
This-
faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came
Man,
out
my
last week,
my
we saw
camera
that.
is just
And
not
we're
keeping
gonna
up.
open
I'm getting a
November
little
9th.
worried
Why
that my
November
camera's
9th?
calling it
Because
quits
it's
on me.
after the election.
This is really
They think
frustrating.
They're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing.
That is
And
true.
he'll
That is a
close down
true
the whole
point.
country. This guy will close down the whole
The
country.
lockdown does cause a lot of
Destroy our country.
mental health
Our
issues.
country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right, your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal. And
I see
he
some
only
of you
focused on
in the
market.
chat here are like
But you folks at home, you folks
talking
living
about-
in Scranton and Claymont, and
talking
all the
about
small towns and working class towns in America.
leftists and
How well are you doing?
all that kind of
This
stuff.
guy paid
Well.
a total of $750 in
Wrong.
taxes.
Milo.
Sir, wait, no, sir. It's
Are you a
I understand. You've
Milo
agreed to the
kind
2
of
minutes, so
trolley
please
kind
let
of
him know.
character?
Get my time back.
One thing I will be
Fact is
careful
that
about
he
internet
has, in
politics.
fact, worked on this
I will
in a
say
way
internet
that he could be
politics
the
are
first
pretty
president of the United
toxic
States
and tend to
leave
be
office
pretty
having fewer jobs in his administration
not the
than
best.
when he became president. Fewer jobs.
Be careful with
than when he became first one
the
in
echo
American
chamber you
history.
fall into with
Secondly,
internet politics. It can
people
work for
who
both
have lost
any
their jobs
kind of
are
politics.
those people who have been on the front lines.
You have
Those
crazy
people who have been
like
saving our lives. Those people who have gone out
tanky
there
like
dying.
communists that
People
go
who've been
crazy
putting
with
themselves in a way to
that
make
end of it,
sure
and then you have
that
the
we could all try to make it.
like
And
red
the
pilled
idea that he is
conservative
insisting that
characters.
we
It's
go
the,
forward and
like
open
anything in
like we
life.
have
There's
almost half the states in America with
there's
a
middle
significant
ground.
increase
There's
in COVID
it's
deaths
never
and
one way or
COVID
the other.
cases in the United States of America, and he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis, and he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a
Milo, don't
national
troll too much,
emergency.
man.
Not
I'm
a
gonna kick you
national
out of here.
emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to.
I
we're
have
gonna,
to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people
let's-
of Ohio are very
Yeah, I
proud
know,
of
I know,
Big
I
Ten.
know. It's
We're
just the
gonna
problem
get
is I don't
to
know
gentlemen,
who
we're
everyone
gonna
is.
get
I just
your
have to be
economic
careful.
Plans going forward in a moment, but first, Mr. President,
And I know what
as you
I know what
know,
like
there's a
internet
new
culture is
report that
like.
in
Trust me, I'm
2016, the year you were elected president.
I'm online a lot.
2017, your
And,
first year as president, that you paid.
it can just be sometimes kind of
$750 a year in federal
like
income
some like
tax
so. Well, you know what's
each of
weird with
those
like
years.
internet? It's so weird to
I
me.
know
Like
that you
internet.
pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that
Oh,
you
wow.
paid $750
Sorry,
in federal income taxes?
birds
each
that
of
are
those
making
2
a
years?
I
nest
paid
in
millions
a
of dollars in taxes.
like a
millions
little
of
I don't know what
dollars
it is, like an
income
exhaust
tax. And let me just
vent
tell you,
coming out of the building
there
next
was a
door.
story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
return.
$38 million.
Anyway,
one
the
year.
internet
I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
internet
Went-
humor
You'll see it as soon
is
as
really
this
edgy.
finishes, You'll see it. You know, if you want to,
And
look
I
at the
get it,
Board
I
of
get it, I
Elections.
get it, I get it, but a lot of
There's
people don't,
118
and a lot of
pages
people don't know how to
report
to
that
like
says everything I
parse
have,
that
every
edgy
bank I have,
internet
I'm
humor where
totally
it's like
under-leveraged
you're
because
being.
the assets are extremely good, and we have.
It's like an inside kind of
I
edginess
built
that
up-
I'm asking
doesn't
you a specific
translate super
question,
well
which
to
is-
like
Let me tell you.
I understand all
public
that.
at large,
I understand
unfortunately.
all that.
But
I'm
let me-
asking
And so
you,
there's
Mr.
it's
President,
like there's
I'm
certain
asking you a question.
forums where that
Will you
humor
tell
and
us
that
how
kind
much
of
you paid in federal income
layered
taxes
sort of
in 2016
irony
and 2017?
makes sense.
Millions of dollars.
You paid
But in a
millions
lot of
dollars.
places,
So
it
not
doesn't
so
translate
millions
very
of
well.
dollars,
So you have
and
to
you'll
know
get
your
to see it.
audience. That's like
And
one of
you'll
those
get to see
important
it.
things about
But let me just tell you. Chris, let me just say something.
conversation,
It
and
was the
you
tax
know
laws.
your
I don't wanna
audience,
pay
know
tax.
where you're at.
Before I came here,
Certain things are
I
appropriate
was a
in certain
private
places,
developer. I was
and
a
unfortunately, we
private
live in a
like every other
in a
private
society,
person, unless they're
so you have to
stupid,
deal with
they
that.
go
You
through
can't just do whatever
the
you want
laws, and that's
all
what
the
it is.
time.
He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We built a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher.
Oh, they're going to talk about the tax thing.
On the money a school teacher makes is because
Hey, I'm a school
of
teacher.
He
Don't
says
bring me
he's
into
smart
this.
because he can take advantage of the tax code, and he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts, and I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts, and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't
Why didn't
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
the way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me
Bombshell
just
from
say, Joe,
Biden.
I've done more in 47
Worst
months.
president.
I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never
See, now
even
it's just
thought of,
becoming
including
personal attacks.
fixing the
Do you
broken
notice this?
military that you
This
gave
is the
me.
problem with
Taking
when
care
it
of
gets to the
Mr.
personal
President,
attacks,
talking
it
about the
becomes,
economy,
in
I'd
my
like to
opinion,
ask you about your
completely
plans going
dumb.
forward,
Like it's
because,
no longer
Vice
useful.
President, your economic plan, if you were to be
Yes,
elected
sir.
president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big
I'm trying to think if I should
spending.
expand
Focus
some of
first
my
on the taxes.
stuff here. Like
You
my mailroom is
proposed
pretty
more than
good, but the
$4
library
trillion
and the shop
over
looks
a
pretty
decade in
full.
new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt
Why
the
is- why are
economy
these
as
people
it's
in
just coming out
solitary?
of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years.
Doesn't
Number
say.
one, and number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying America. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500.
Yeah, I don't know why it's dying on me. It's not a battery thing because it's not running on battery. It's running off of
because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
just
got it done.
the,
And you know what?
USB
You got
power.
it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like it's never
and
boomed.
the economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would
Really? Oh, you
continue
saw a message?
Your free market approach.
Oh, you know what? It
lower
is kind of
taxes,
running
more
off battery, but
deregulation,
it's
correct?
plugged
Not lower
in.
tax for the American people.
So maybe the battery is
but
draining
in
faster
Obama's-
than it can
you talk about the economy
charge.
booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs.
You know what? I
than
could
in
have
the
I could
first
I
3
could have
years
actually
of your
jacked up the
presidency.
battery on
They
this
had the
camera
slowest
by
recovery
using it this way.
since
I could have actually
economic
destroyed the
recovery
battery.
since
Shoot.
1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies,
already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other
companies
places.
have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
Harvey,
depression, the likes
that-
of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
It was a-
it was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to wait? Is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID came in.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in a hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris,
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number 2.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy.
a miracle to
Trump.
bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
No,
came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And
it.
they
Mr.
didn't
Vice-
come in
wait,
with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done
What's up, Drew?
very little. His trade deals are the same way. He
How you
talks
doing,
about
man?
these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch,
All
down
right, gentlemen,
18%.
in-
China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also,
Simply
while
not
we're at it,
true.
why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is
did he do with Burisma
none
to
of that.
deserve
Wait, wait.
$100
Yeah, I heard a lot of people have tests
None
this
of
week,
that.
like coming up right on this at the end of this week for some reason. Like week 7 seems to be a
Mr.
real.
President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
I don't know what you would say, just like a
Totally
big
discredited. And by the way,
moment for
wait,
tests
so
for
you
all
got
these
$3.5
classes.
Mr. Vice,
You got
Mr.
3.5
President,
Sometimes that happens.
That
Like
is not true.
Oh, really?
I think the
Mr.
reason why it
President,
happens is there's just sort of
it's an open
there's a sort of a general
meeting.
time frame
Glad
which
you
teachers
said
like to give tests after a certain amount of material that they cover. So as the tests aren't too big, and like all the teachers have that general sort of mentality, and so what you end up with is
Mr. President,
all teachers just sort of deciding to give tests around the same time,
Mr.
which is
President,
kind of annoying for
answer.
students. I agree.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His
What do you mean?
position has been
I was
totally
number 2. I was on number 2. What does that mean?
Media.
by everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
Under
ask you
oath.
this,
Henry,
Joe.
No,
under
no,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even the
you.
people under.
You got $3.5 million from
testified,
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration. Said, "I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to
honorably."
know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
they're
get
here's
the
the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President. I'm
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
Oh,
alive.
family
yeah,
lost-
you're right.
my
The
family
chat's a little
lost
delayed.
fortune by coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a.
they're right
that's
here.
a-
Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family.
They
The
didn't
American
like
people.
Back to the
He
camera.
Doesn't-
Biden
that's
again
not true.
pleading
He
to the
doesn't
camera.
Want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Not
that's the end
about
of
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't
segment.
take them.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I
ex-
be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
That's
I
a
He
good
stood
thing.
up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion
Sir,
if you don't
That
get rid
is
of it.
you know what, you're-
absolutely
wait,
not
stop.
You're on
true.
tape doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but it
on
seems
tape.
to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's
Chris.
the
That's a
deal.
good point.
Chris,
We have
stop.
6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted moments, Mr.
Uninterrupted.
President, you can
Let's
say
see.
anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country
else
would
do
be
I
better
wanna make
served
here?
if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Well,
interrupting
that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than.
Okay,
sir,
well,
less
that's
than-
just a straight lie.
Less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response
I agree, Drew. It's hard
the
to
violence
watch. It's
in
not really
Charlottesville 3
productive,
years
right?
ago,
In the end, like
when he talked
it's like,
about
okay, we want to
35
really know, like,
people
what are
on both sides.
these people's
was what directly
plans?
led
Like, what are their
you
intentions and what are their thoughts?
launch this
How do
run
they
for
think
president.
critically? Like, I would love,
President
I would love to
You have
be able
always
to
said
like
that you believe you have done
listen to their
more
thought process
for
more,
Black Americans
right?
than
Like
any
really
president
talk
with
through an
the
issue to
possible
its
exception
conclusion,
of Abraham Lincoln. My
and be able to
question for the two
field
of you
like critical
is,
questions and
why
like
should
continue that
voters
thought process.
trust
Instead of what
you
we get is
rather than your
essentially
opponent
just
to deal
quick,
with the race
like
issues facing this
rehearsed
country over the
lines
next
and then
4
just sort
years?
of
Vice President
personal
Biden, you go
attacks
first.
back and forth.
It's about
And
equity,
you don't really learn
equality,
much.
It's about decency.
Yeah, it's
about
really
the
a problem.
Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying.
I don't know if that's just a symptom
equality
of
for everyone, equality
the
for
the
whole
politics in
America.
general, or if that's something that could be
Never
remedied
accomplished them.
with
We've
just
never
the problem is
walked away
you're
from
never
the
going to get a
keys.
presidential
It is
candidate
true.
to
The reason I
agree
got
to
the races from
a
those
different
people,
format
close
of
your
debate
eyes. Remember
because
those
they
people
need
look
they
like
will
coming
always
out of
want to
the fields
prepare and have
punches.
rehearsed lines and not have to
Veins
think on their feet
bulging,
because then there's always a
spewing
risk for
anti-Semitic bile,
some sort of
and accompanied
mishap
by the Ku
or
Klux Klan. A young woman got killed.
saying something that
And
they
asked the
they
president what he
regret.
thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president.
Yeah, Ian, I agree a little bit with that. The one thing is that this
Now,
debate
second point.
moderator hasn't done a really great
When
job of controlling
Floyd was killed. When Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House.
controlling
What did he do?
the
He came out
interruptions,
of his
especially from
bunker,
Trump.
had
Trump
the
has just sort of run
military
rampant. I don't know if you were watching
tear
earlier,
gas
but there was a
signs.
moment
You
where
could
Trump
walk
basically
across
just
to a church and hold up a
actually
flag.
started debating
And
with
then
Chris
what happened
Wallace.
after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus.
60
And
IQ.
if it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
do
average,
something
Justin.
quickly, by the end of
It's
the year,
average.
1 in 500 will have been killed. 1
Uh,
in 500
I wouldn't
African
call.
Americans.
I don't know if I
This
would
man-
call either of these
this
people
man
with 60
is
IQ.
is a savior
I
of
think
African Americans. This man cares at all.
they're
This
just
man's done virtually nothing. Look, the
they're
fact is
playing
that
the
you have to
game
look
of
at what he
politics,
talks about.
right?
You have to
It's
look
not.
at
I
what he
wouldn't
did.
say it's the
What he did
individuals.
has been disastrous for the African American
Like
community.
it's hard to know. Like if you
So-
sat down and had a
President
conversation
Trump,
with
you
these
have 2
people,
minutes.
it's hard to
Why
say exactly
Americans trust you
how
over your
competent they are,
State of crime bill,
but they're playing the
1994,
game of a
where you call them
political
super
debate,
predators,
which
African
doesn't lend
American
itself to
super
demonstrating
predators, and they've never forgotten
high
it.
IQ
They've
takes,
never
I don't
forgotten
think.
it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they called you
Justin, you're
super
smarter than
predator,
60
and I'm
IQ. I
letting
know you,
people out of
man.
jail now that you have treated the African American
You're smarter than that.
population community. You have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. Because you look back
This
at
better
your
not get-
testimony over the years, you
again,
called
this
them
just
a lot
gets
worse than that.
slandery.
As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals. Total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say
Yeah,
the word law
I mean,
enforcement, because if you say those words,
I think when you
you're going to lose all of your
think
radical
about
left
it, a
supporters.
lot of
And
times
why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say
the
the words
when
law
you say like
enforcement?
viral
Because
clips,
you know what?
you're
If they
probably
called
you
us
mean
in
like
Portland,
they just
we would
so
put out that fire in a half an
it's
hour.
weird like
We wouldn't do
nowadays
it
it
because
seems
they're run
like
by
any
radical
press,
left
even if it's
Democrats.
bad press,
If you
is
look at
still
Chicago,
good, right? So
if
like
you
just
look at
having
any
a
place
clip
you
that
wanna
goes
look,
viral
Seattle,
puts your
they
face
heard
out
you were
there,
coming in the following
and a
day.
lot of
They
times
put
that's
up their
enough to like
hands
get
and we
you
got back Seattle. Minneapolis,
votes and
we got it
notoriety.
back, Joe, because we believe in law and order.
I don't know. I think
The top 10 cities and just
the attention
about the
span
top 40
of our culture has
cities
decreased,
are
and
run
so
by Democrats and in many cases
people
radical
aren't really
left,
as
and
interested
they've
in
got
sitting
you
down
wrapped
and
around
hearing
their
like
finger, Joe,
long form
to a point where you
conversations,
don't wanna say
and so
anything
the
about
sort of
law
like the
and order.
Twitter
And I'll tell you what,
mentality of
the
just
people
quick
of
hitters,
this country want
like
and
you know
demand
things like
law and order,
TikTok and
you're afraid to
Snapchat and
even
these sort of
say it.
mediums are designed for
I
like
wanna return
just
to the
quick
question
next one
of
like
race.
Instagram. You're scrolling,
President Biden,
you're getting like
after
quick
the grand
hits,
jury in the Breonna
getting that like
Taylor
dopamine
case,
hit with every little
decided not to
new piece of
charge any
information,
the
but nothing
police
really goes too
with
deep
homicide.
and
You said it
nuanced
raises the
and
question,
technical.
quote, whether justice
Although, you know, there are
equally applied
podcasts
in
are out there.
America. Do you
Podcasts exist,
believe
which are long
that
form
there is a
and can be
separate
pretty
but
nuanced and
unequal
technical. But
system of
most people don't have
justice for
time to sit down and
blacks
listen to a 3-hour, you know,
There's
podcast about
systemic
something that
injustice in this
nuanced.
country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to
Actually, I
take
want to
care
hear
of
their
us.
takes on
But there are some bad apples. And when
BLM
they
stuff.
occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
What is peaceful protest?
a
When
good
they
take.
run through the middle of the
President-
town
President Trump-
and burn down your
President
stores
Trump-
All right,
and
now-
kill people
President
all over
Trump,
the place?
that
and you
is
say
not-
That's a
peaceful
mischaracterization
protest?
by
I'm
Trump.
not asking-
But you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump,
say
I'd
it.
like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
is radical,
and he would know.
What is
Oh, it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country.
Do I think
And I'm not
affirmative
gonna allow that
action
to
is
happen.
good?
President Biden?
Oh, you're asking me a
Just
tough
easily
one.
Racist.
You just have-
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this.
don't
than
need
you do.
Let him finish.
I think affirmative action
The
is
fact is
a
that
really
there
difficult
is
topic
racial
to
insensitivity.
cover
People have to be made aware.
because I think
what
I
other
agree
people
with certain
feel,
aspects of it
what-
and I
what
disagree with
insults
others.
them, what is
It almost feels like a
demeaning. It's
necessary
important that people know.
evil,
They
the
don't
way I
want
would
to.
put it.
Many
Not that it's
people don't
evil
want
in and
to
of
hurt
itself,
other
but like
people's feelings,
the,
but
it's
it
almost
makes
like I
a big
feel like
difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way
it's-
a child is
I
able
think
to
it was
grow up
it's
and have
definitely
a
something that was
sense of
useful
self-esteem.
to
It's a little
sort of
bit like
help
how
level the
this
playing
guy
field
and
for
his friends look down
certain
on so many people.
individuals that
Look
are
down their
coming
nose
from
on people
backgrounds
like
of
Irish Catholics
just a
like
simple
me
lack
who grew
of
up in Scranton.
access
Look
to
down on people who
resources
don't have
and
money. They look
sort of
down on
a
people who
disadvantageous
are of a different faith. They look down on
situation.
people who are a different color.
But I
In
do
fact,
understand
we're all
the
Americans.
complaints
The only way
that
we're
it
gonna bring this
can
country
feel
together is
discriminatory in the
everybody,
opposite
because there's
direction.
nothing we
Like I
cannot
get both
do.
sides of
If
that
we do it
argument.
together, we can take this on and we can defeat
What's up,
racism.
Blue? How you doing, man? Good to see you.
President Trump-
Been a while.
During the
Thanks for
Obama
dropping in.
Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson.
I would
you
just
look
hope
at-
that we can get to a
go to
point where we
very
no longer
wicked
need
places.
it,
Look at Oakland.
right?
Look
Obviously,
what
that's an
happened in
idealistic
Oakland.
sort
Look
of
what
take.
happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason
This
is
is
that the
ridiculous.
Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't.
Yeah,
wanna
so
talk
I don't know.
about law
I have a
and
hard
order.
time on that one. I don't know how I stand. I think
I'm in favor of
I
law.
understand I understand the arguments from both sides, which is kind of like there are certain topics.
Let him
Oh my God, this debate just gets out of hand with these arguments.
Fairly.
There are certain debates, or not debates, sorry, there are certain topics where, like, I understand both sides of it,
Went down much more.
which makes it difficult for me to take a full stance either way.
Mr. President,
Every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very
And affirmative
honest.
action
We're
is
not gonna
kind of
talk
one of
about law
those.
and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly my question. There has been a
You don't
dramatic increase
understand,
in homicides in America
You did 3 presentations on affirmative action? What class were you doing those? You don't understand why they use race. I don't understand why they use race to decide instead of income.
So the question is this really a party issue?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that race, are you saying that like race is a proxy for income? Like i.e.
shot and 8 died shot.
Well, they do. I mean, income does exist. Like they do give scholarships, right, for people with low income to attend. So I don't think income usually.
Crazy what's going on, and he doesn't want to say law and order.
Income doesn't necessarily. So here would be my take on that. Is I think the idea of affirmative action is that income
and they ran it the way he would want to run it.
Shouldn't inhibit someone from succeeding in school because school is a public thing. Although I might disagree with this. Like obviously, if you're more wealthy, you can afford things like extra help and tutors and things like that. And you might be able to, your family might be able to move to a more wealthy area where you could afford like a private school. So there is a connection between like wealth and ability to succeed in education. But I think the idea with affirmative action is that race in and of itself, right, can put you at a disadvantage, not coupled to income, right? So that would be it.
With COVID, they're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment, they're being flooded, they're being burned out.
Isn't the argument that people of color have less resources?
Well,
Well, there's two things. There's also like a historic issue with people of color, right? Like historic kind of thing, with the sort of the idea behind
First of all, what is reimagining policing
people
mean,
of
and
color
do you support
tended in the past to be discriminated against, which is not really something you can deny. And that
do you support the Black Lives Matter
affirmative action is a way to sort of try and help rectify those past issues by giving people of color a potential
What I support is the police having the
pathway
opportunity to
into higher
deal with the
education.
problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the
But it's not a
police.
perfect system,
Matter of
obviously,
fact,
because
police, local police.
you know
The
there are
only
definitely
funding
other
is his
factors that
budget
determine
calls
how
for
people
$400
succeed in the
million
education
cut in
system
local
aside
law
from
enforcement
race.
assistance. They need
I think it's a
more
really
assistance.
tough question.
They need when they show
And
up
I know I'm not,
on
and I'm kind
call
of
to
not
have someone
answering the
with a
question directly, but
psychologist or
that's because I
psychiatrist
actually don't
to
have a
keep them from having to use
I don't have a
force
strong
and be able to
stance
talk
on it
people
because I
down.
do think it's a
We
really
have to have
nuanced and difficult
community policing like we had before,
I understand
where
both
the officers
sides.
get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevent-
talking about,
That-
Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're
that's
He's talking
exactly-
about defunding the
that-
police.
That is not true.
He doesn't
Kind of
have
like
any
reparations
law
in a way.
Well, you-
support.
look,
He has no law
A
enforcement.
little
that's
bit
not
like
true.
reparations.
That's not, look,
Oh, really?
But it's like
Yeah.
indirect
Name one group that
reparations, right? It's
supports
not
you.
like
Name one
I'm not
group
just
that
giving
came
you
out
straight up
supporting
money.
you.
I'm just
Go ahead.
Look,
Think. We have time.
I'm giving you
We
an
don't have time.
opportunity. I'm
No, no,
increasing your chances to make a living in the future by giving you an advantage of attending a school and getting an education. So it's like indirect reparations.
The issue of protests in many cities that have turned
Yeah, I mean, I've heard arguments on both sides,
We had more than 100
and a lot of times they make
days
sense
of
to me.
protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots.
I guess the question would be like, is it actually working,
You
right?
say
Like, is
that
affirmative
people
action
who
actually
commit
doing what it's
crimes
intended to do?
should
Is
be
it
held
bringing about
accountable. The question I
more
have, though, is,
success?
as the Democratic
Oh,
nominee,
shoot,
and
I gotta
earlier
turn
tonight you
these
said
radios
that
off.
you are the Democratic Party right now.
My
Have you
radios.
ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the
And
Democratic
I don't know
governor
enough
of
about
Portland
the
and
studies
said,
on affirmative
"Hey,
action
you gotta
to,
stop this,
insofar
bring
as
in the
like
National Guard, do
what
whatever
they
it
have
takes,
shown
but
as
you'd
far as its
stop the
success.
Days and months of violence in
If you know
Portland."
anything about that,
I
I'd
don't hold public office now.
love to know. You can send me a
I am
link or something. I can
former
take a
vice
look.
president. I've made it clear.
Insufficient
I've made
funds.
it
I don't have
clear
enough
in
money
my
for a
public
TV in my
statements
common room
that the violence should be prosecuted.
because I'm building this yard
It
over
should be
here.
prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people,
He's never
the
said
leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call
Because
bring in
they-
the National Guard and knock off 100 days
Ooh,
of
my camera
rioting.
died again.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the
No,
killer of the
then-
young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days...
My
President
camera will
Trump-
cut in and out right now because the battery's having
I had
issues.
in
So
the U.S. Marshals,
President
they took
Trump-
care
it'll
of
go
business.
off for a
Go
couple
ahead,
minutes, then
And by the way,
it'll come back
You know,
on.
his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said.
She said that. And so here's the,
All right.
Again,
well, here's
this
the
is
point.
sort of
ahead.
he said,
Point
she
is that
said kind of thing.
That's what he keeps trying to rile.
She
the
said that.
field.
No, she didn't. She said that.
doesn't
No,
wanna
she didn't.
calm
She said
things
that. No, she
down.
didn't. It's like, okay.
Instead
well.
of going in and talking to
Now,
people
what are we
and
even
saying,
talking about?
"Let's
If it's
get
something that
everybody
no one
together,
knows if someone
figure out
actually
how to
said,
deal
why are we
with
even
this."
talking about it?
What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
repeated. No,
second.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
you
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would
could
very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in
I'm-
the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
I
Go
would
ahead,
say,
sir.
Controversial
I would say
issue here.
almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
what are you- what
If
are you-
look-
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I
Man.
want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
I want to hear what he has to say.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a name.
See, this is where it gets-
What would you like me to condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right-wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
Not
kidding.
militia. That's what
Oh, really?
his
It's an idea.
FBI,
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're moving.
gives
When a bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative." And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest
I don't understand
unemployment
why
numbers.
parole-
Everything was good. Everything was
The
going.
pro
And by the
offices
way,
aren't working.
there was
I
unity
don't
going
get
to
this.
happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling, and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you, because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son
Putin's-
got
No.
$1 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back
No,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That was a
not yelling.
rhetorical question.
Can
So
you add back 30
I don't.
seconds?
Yeah,
Trump
yes, you may have.
just
All right.
acts
Go ahead.
like a child. Like he
30.
can't not get the
Before,
last word in.
Billionaires have gotten much more wealthy.
His
by
ego
a
is off
tune
the
of
charts.
Over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter?
hell.
Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're
I
talking
don't
about.
know. I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know,
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a
Dude,
fortune. in
imagine
Ukraine, in China,
attacking
in
someone on
Moscow.
public
Simply
TV
very
about
out
their
of the
son.
place.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
my son.
It's
And
just
he
like
didn't
so
have a
My
low,
son,
dude.
Like a lot of people. Like
Say
a
what
lot
you
of people
want
at
about
home.
like
Have a
Biden and
drug
anything like that, but
problem.
like
He's overtaken it. He's fixed it.
I just don't
He's
agree with
worked
that
on
kind
it.
of-
And
that
I'm
kind of-
proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
But
dollars?
he wasn't given
All right.
tens of
He was
millions of
given
dollars. That
tens
is
of
totally.
millions of
That's
President
totally.
Trump-
like personal attacks are just not necessary in these like unless it relates directly to some issue.
So do I.
But it's like you-
as the moderator, sir, I'm
trying
gonna
to
make
tear
a
someone's
comment.
son down on national television is like just a move that you don't really make. It's I feel like that's just common courtesy.
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay.
Oh wait,
The
climate change?
forest fires in the West
I
are
thought that
raging now.
he
They
didn't have it on
burned
his list.
millions
I
of
remember reading
acres.
the list of
They
topics.
have
Climate change wasn't on there.
displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change?
This will be interesting.
And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Okay,
exciting.
United States,
That human
half we have half the emissions that China has, and we have a quarter of their
But I
population.
think to an extent, yes. I think to
This is
an
a fact
extent,
check right
yes,
here.
but I
He's
also
talking about
think
United States
we
is doing
have to
amazing
do
with
better
carbon dioxide,
management
right? This
of
was
our forests
2018.
every
I don't think it's
year.
changed much in the
I get
last
the
2
call.
years.
California's burning. California's burning. if that was cleaned, if that
Oh, this is
were,
updated
if you had
2020.
forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls.
Per
You know, in
capita.
Europe, they live their forest
Boom,
cities. They're
U.S.
called
Number
forest
4,
cities.
we're per capita.
They
We're behind
maintain their
Australia,
forests. They
Kazakhstan, and
manage
Saudi
their
Arabia
forests.
in per capita
I was with the
emissions.
head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, "Sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem." I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power
And the
Plan, which
EPA.
limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take
your-
a lot
your
of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now,
Wait, what?
So, and
Wait,
by the
what
way,
was
we're
that
going to see
logic?
how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with
So
it.
he's
Many
saying-
people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit
Okay.
of gasoline. And, by
That's
the,
not-
and
So
I'm
he's
okay with
saying
electric
we can
cars,
make
too.
cars
I'm
cheaper
all
by
for
making them
electric
less
cars. I've given big
fos
incentives
by
for
making them
electric
less
cars.
efficient.
But what they've done
And they
in
produce more
California is
emissions.
just
All right.
crazy.
Therefore,
Vice
people with
President Biden, I'd
old,
like you
really
to
bad cars that have a lot of
respond to the
emission will
president's
therefore
climate
buy a new car
change
to
record.
replace
I
their
also
old
wanna
car.
ask you about a
What?
concern. You proposed
doesn't
$2
seem
trillion
right.
in green
As if,
jobs. You talked
dude,
about
it's like
new
as if the
limits, not
poorest
abolishing, but
people
new
with
limits
the
on
oldest
fracking,
cars are the
ending
ones
the use of
buying
fossil
cars.
fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission
It's
of
the
greenhouse
people who
gases
buy
by
cars like
2050.
every 3 years, or they
President
lease new
says
cars, or
none
like
of
the
these
rental
things would
companies.
tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the
It's a weird
cost
logic move,
of
I don't know.
renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable
Oil-fired
energy.
plant. No one
number
uses
one. Number
not
two,
that many oil
we're going to make sure that we are able
plants.
to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can.
You can
get
tell
to
Biden doesn't
net
quite know
zero
the science
in terms
behind it.
of
He's just sort of
energy
repeating things.
production by 2035. Not only
So it's
not
kind of like
costing
Austin.
people jobs, creating millions of good-paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will
Amy,
do,
what's
I will
up?
rejoin the Paris Accord.
Amy,
I
did
will
you ever
join
get
the
your
Paris
film
Accord
club
because
off the
with us
ground?
out of it, look what's happening.
Or did that
It's
kinda
all
not end up
falling
happening this
apart.
year?
And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests?
Awesome.
And
I hope
he's
you get it
drawn
in.
his line.
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that Well, the fact is,
true?
it's all true. And here's
He's
the deal.
talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they
the
want to rip
Biden
down
plan.
Go for a
buildings
minute, and then you can go.
and rebuild the building.
No,
It's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Where airplanes are out of
minute, sir.
business,
That's it.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want
true.
to take out the cows too.
Not
That's not
true.
true either, right?
Not
this is
true.
this is a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
That's more money than our
that is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we're
not
going.
the case.
All right, let me
It will destroy
because,
our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying
jobs.
jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a
we are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. But the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen,
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to
All
rebuild
right.
every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew
Gentlemen,
He
anything
made a
about,
statement
Gentlemen?
about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say that.
tape. He
That is-
said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
sir,
it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
play
Stop.
it. Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
Just
The final question.
The
is,
mudslinging.
I can't remember which of all his rantings.
You don't remember much.
it's the one term I remember from taking was it like a
about
history
the economy
class
and
when I was in
about
high
this
school?
question of what it's going to cost.
Mudslinging was like
The
a
economy.
I mean, the Green New
Political
Deal
technique.
and the idea of what your
The
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal-
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden-
lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.
So Biden is
Election
trying
integrity. As we
to
meet
kind of
tonight, millions of Americans
play
are
the
receiving
not so
mail-in
extreme
ballots or going to vote early.
environmentalist, but
How
play the
confident should
still
we
the
be
concerned
that
route?
This will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do?
I guess he's always
over
been
the
that
next
kind of a
5
candidate, sort
plus
of
weeks,
the
because
moderate.
It'll not only be to election day, but
What am I
also
trying to do
counting
here?
some ballots, mail-in ballots after election day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final
Perception.
segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how
Actually,
they're
you know
going
what?
to vote,
Make this
when they're
a,
going to vote, and what means by which they're going to
I'm
vote.
gonna make this a high
His own
security
Homeland Security Director, and as well as the
area.
FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, We're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What
is
are
you
you
go
gonna
and
do?
vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I'm not-
okay,
I know
or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and vote. You go and
No,
vote.
but
Like
I'm
they-
saying-
It's not as
like
easy.
they used
About
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old-
millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is
evidence
not
of
going to
that.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
This
evidence
is
of that.
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden-
5 states
fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he
You're
knows
wrong.
the outcome.
You're
No,
wrong.
I want to continue with you on
I
this,
love counting
Vice
the
President
vote.
Biden.
Chris,
because
he's so wrong when he makes
in
a
fact,
statement
no,
like that.
excuse me, Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they
can
missed
be fraud.
the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you
I
have
a final-
80 million
Gentlemen,
ballots
I have a final
sent in
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right,
been
so now-
fraud.
Mail service
deception.
delivers
Wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is,
day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
in
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited currently by
What's
law
up,
in
legend
states
of Blitz
from
God?
even
Sorry, my
beginning the
camera
process.
just died a little bit. I'm
Now,
going to try
we
and
can
get it
take them
going
out of
here
the
again in a
envelopes
second
Yes.
before the
flatten
debate
them
ends.
until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified?
Yeah, right.
President Trump,
As if
you
they'll
go
I'm
first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
what-
you
what
what,
does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're gonna
tell you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to
It
the
means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do
They're
about that?
they're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare
I don't know if my
victory
camera's
until
gonna
the
come back
election
on.
is independently certified?
Yes.
I don't know what
Here's
happened.
The deal. They
I'm
count
worried.
The ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until
I don't want to have to get
election day.
another
And if there's
webcam.
thousands of ballots, going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots. That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked
and
you had an opportunity
look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
So
He has
this
no
is
idea
just
what
a
he's
kind of
talking
just a
about.
point here
Here's the
where
deal.
this whole mail-in
The fact
ballot
is,
thing is
I
just
will
is a
accept
good
any
example of
guilty,
how
you know why?
framing, right?
Because
So it's
once
both
the winner is
both
declared after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted. That'll
both
be the end of it. That'll be the end.
candidates here are
And
talking
it's me.
about
In fact, fine. If it's
mail-in
not
ballots,
me,
right? One's
I'll
for them and
support
one's
the outcome.
against them.
And I'll be a president.
And
not
the
just for
logic that they're using to be pro and
Democrats. I'll
against
be
them is
president
just
for
simply like
Democrats and
it
Republicans.
seems to
And
me
this guy,
a little bit both like post hoc
ballot
rationalization where they're
Will you
both
say
like
that's the end of it?
one
This is the
wants
end
there
of
to be
this
mail-in
debate?
ballots and one
ballot
doesn't,
We're
and they're
going
using
to
logic and rationality,
to
quote
be
unquote, to sort of
continued
backfill in
as
their
more
argument.
debates as
One's
we
going,
go on.
well, we shouldn't have them because
President
people
Trump,
will use it for fraud, and the other one's going, well, we should have it because then more people will vote, right? And the question is, how do you know which of those is right? You would have to have some sort of evidence, right? Some sort of data that has been collected that shows you the answer, right? Like whether or not mail-in ballots lead to more fraud or lead to more voters, like, and compare those two things. But instead, you're just using unproven statements to try and prove what you want in the end.
We'll debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch.
Trying to get my
Until
webcam back
then,
on
thank
here.
you.
Happy Gator.
And good night.
It still popped up in your recommended. That's awesome, dude. How are you doing?
And that concludes
Sorry, my
PBS's
webcam's not working.
coverage of this first presidential debate of the 2020 election cycle. Welcome back to the PBS NewsHour's special coverage. I'm
All
Judy
right.
Woodruff at our studio in Washington, D.C. I have to say, I've never seen a debate like this one. It was more of a brawl at times than it was a debate. The president
Yeah,
repeatedly was
that's true.
asked by the moderator, Chris Wallace, not
Okay. Gonna exit out of that. Let's see. Let me see if I can get my video camera to work here before I call it quits. Yeah, I would say overall, I thought that debate was pretty unproductive, to say the least. I didn't hear anything of substance particularly from either candidate, to be honest. Again, Trump is just sort of, that's his style. He just is very combative, very interrupting. He just sort of badgers the other person a little bit to get them flustered, maybe, which is kind of not a great tactic, but. And Biden really, he just kind of what you would expect. Presented his ideas and, tried to come back at Trump a little bit when Trump badgered him. But a lot of it was just, stuff that people would say, and there's not much evidence behind a lot of it. Again, not that useful, unfortunately. It just sort of reaffirms any sort of general opinions that you might have of either candidate. Doesn't really do anything brand new, unfortunately. Man, I wish my webcam was working, but it ain't. But it ain't. All right, I'm gonna see if I can get this. Well, the problem is I need this camera to work for tomorrow. It's funny how this piece of technology, like a camera, becomes part of your job, and now it's like, what happens if I don't have it? Let's see. Give me one sec here. I don't think anyone won, if I'm being honest. There's no winner here because we didn't learn much. Man, this is really frustrating. Maybe I just used my camera too much today and the battery died and I haven't given it enough time to recharge, and so it's failing me that way. The other thing is it could just be running to the end of its life, which is really problematic, because then I need to get something quick. Anyone have good recommendations for webcams? Just in case I have to go that route. Let's see, best webcams for, let's see, what's my price range? Probably under 100. Tom's Hardware. I like Tom's Hardware. They usually do good reviews. (1080p, 30 FPS, wide field of view. I don't really need much more than 1080p. My PC doesn't have a webcam. I just have 2 monitors. I built my own computer. It's not like a laptop with a built-in webcam. You know what I mean? I just have, I got 2 monitors connected to my desktop that I had built, and it doesn't have a webcam built into it. So I have to use the external one. Okay, what is this one? The Osdom AF640. Oh, it's the C920 clone, I see. 1080p, 30 FPS, that's pretty much all I need. I don't really need a mic. I have my own mic. Wide field of view, that's kind of nice. Whatever. Nani? Cheap 4K? I don't need 4K. I don't need 4K. It's unnecessary. That's just $70. This brand, Osdom, I'm not sure. I've never heard of this brand. Okay, I might have to do something like this. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. I'll try and charge my camera tonight and see if that actually helps. Let's see what happens. Heck, this guy looks like a photoshopped face, dude. Raspberry Pi as a webcam? A DIY alternative. I remember I made a Raspberry Pi. I remember those. Remember I made a Raspberry Pi that doubled as like a Super Nintendo, and I gave it as a gift to a friend of mine. So I had like loaded up on a bunch of Super Nintendo games and a controller hookup, and I had a little HDMI out on it that you could connect it to your TV to play some games on. I don't really feel like doing a lot of work to set up a whole Raspberry Pi. All right, well, I might call it quits tonight then if I can't get my webcam working. Let me try one more time. I've left it off for a little while. Just test it here. If that's gonna kick in or not, we'll see. If that doesn't work, I'm gonna be a little bit annoyed. Okay, well, my webcam is broken officially. That's a bummer. All right, I know you guys can't see me and I can't really do much about that, so I think what I'm gonna do is call it a night. So everybody enjoy the rest of your night. I hope you didn't lose too many brain cells from that debate, because I know I lost a few. But other than that, I'll see some of you. I'll see you guys later. And I'm going to be back on tomorrow. So tomorrow night I'll be back on doing a stream that'll be bio-oriented, bio-related, because there's a test coming up. So I'll just be on for that. And I'll see you then. All right, everybody. Goodbye. I'm going to stop streaming now.